Hello and welcome to another episode of the CAGED Canary podcast. I'm your host, Matty Gilbert, here at Before Magic. Sounds like I'm whispering. It's because I am. I'm recording this late at night, and I actually have like a little bit of a cough or something. So please excuse me. That's why I'm trying to save my voice. Anyways, today I want to talk a little bit about this project that I'm working on called Emanations. You guys know what Emanations playing cards was, but that was only part of the project. That was sort of a physical manifestation of a component of the project, which was a deck of cards. But the true project and where the idea for Emanations came was the gap of learning in magic, the lack of education, and we're just sort of at a place in magic where people don't know the history, and it really is hard for people to understand the history of magic. And one of the reasons it's so hard is it's not properly documented and made available to magicians. What do I mean by that? Now, on the lowest level, you have people getting into magic and they don't know anything about the history of magic. They don't even know the tricks that they're doing. They don't know the names of the tricks. They don't know who invented it. They don't know the techniques. And then past that, you have people who've read magic books, who have hung out with magicians, who have that oral tradition passed down to them, and who read. And so they are familiar with magicians within the last 100 years or so, or maybe a little bit more than that. And the techniques and the tricks and the stories, and then you have the more serious scholars in magic who know the history of magic going back a few hundred years. I think one of the first types of magic books, and I have to make a distinction right away in between ancient magic and modern magic. We'll get back to that distinction in a little bit. But the first book really on modern magic, which is magic based on deception, and this being documented in writing, could go back, but this is not even true. I'm just saying this for, to make a separation, but the truth is a lot more has been documented further back. But regardless, some of the most serious scholars in magic historians, know the history of magic going back a few hundred years. Around 500 to 600 years is generally accepted when we have the first magic tricks really documented in print. And some of these were mathematical principles, techniques, mathematical secrets that monks would use, arithmetics that monks would actually practice their math on, and they would do little tricks on other monks and their friends and stuff. So anyways, that goes back a few hundred years, and then to slowly documented. So if you talk to the hardcore magic scholars, they are versed in that obscure, and even that's such a niche thing. There's probably only a few people in the world who really know about that stuff. I would say, a few dozen at the very max. Who really know a history of magic going back a few hundred years. And then, obviously, magic wasn't created 500 years ago. Magic is much older than that. And then we move into what we would call ancient magic. And this is where everything gets muddy, because at this point, when you're reading the documentation of magic, there's no real distinction between real magic and fake magic. And you sort of see this throughout the magic literature throughout time. And you can even see it in the discovery of witchcraft. You can see it in many books and pamphlets going throughout time. This sort of obfuscation, this confusion between real magic and what we would call modern magic, the magic that we are performing theatrically. And I became very interested in what I would call ancient magic or real magic, because I wanted to understand what it was and where it came from and how the magic that we do came from that and how it branched off from that and what the difference is, because none of that was very clear to me in the magic literature that I had read. There's obviously references to magicians working in ancient Greece and in ancient Egypt and ancient Rome. They talk about some of the stuff that they were doing and how it interfaced with their religions. But even then, it was always very vague, and there was not much information. There was always like a huge hole. Like, what is the difference in between real magic and sort of like the fake magic that we perform, like magic tricks? And what is the difference? And so I started researching this stuff, and it was a very hard thing to understand. And it's something that I'm even now, even with doing all the research that I am doing, I find it fascinating but difficult to understand. And I realize the stuff that I'm looking into and researching is so pervasive in our world, and has influenced magic in so many ways, and just the way we think as humanity in so many ways, in terms of just thinking and influencing our ideas of the supernatural and superpowers and physical reality, psychic reality, so on. And for me, I was like, how do I transmit all the stuff that I'm learning? And so that's what the Emanations project is about, and that's what I hope to be doing. It's such a big project, and I'm still not sure how I'm going to tackle it. It's just something that I wanted to get into with people and really go right down to the bottom of it and see what the difference was. And also, I had a very personal reason to want to investigate this stuff. I will say from my own life experience, I'm a Christian. I believe in the Bible, and when I was reading it, they would talk about magic and witchcraft and sorcery and pharmakia as all these evil things, and I had a very hard time understanding it, because I looked at, the magic that I had been into for years, which is, performing magic tricks with cards, like, doing sleight of hand, switching cards out, switching coins, peeking at stuff, and, being one ahead, using the one ahead principle and stuff like that, of like, how does this correlate with the evil that I'm seeing in the Bible presented? And so for me, I was, very fascinated, because I'm like, here's these two things that are a part of my life, and that sort of, on the surface, if you just look at it, seemingly conflict. So then I started looking into it to see, like, what is it that the Bible is actually talking about? What is it, this type of magic, this type of sorcery that they're talking about? And so that was definitely one thing that motivated me as well. And it's really, it's a wormhole, and there's really nobody who's able to guide anyone through it because it's never really been investigated in sort of the way that I'm investigating it, which is kind of really nice because every single thing that I'm exploring, it's like the first time that it's ever been discovered with my viewpoint, my unique approach to it. But at the same time, it's also daunting just because the amount of research that it takes. I mean, I remember I must have read, you know, I because people trace magic back to shamans, this pre-organized religion, quasi-spiritual belief where these shamans are performing magic, controlling the elements, demonstrating power. So I must have read a few dozen books on shamans, trying to understand what it was about, what was going on, and looking at it from different ways. And just doing all the research that I'm doing, it's so deep. I mean, you take a book like The Golden Bough by James Frazer. I mean, the original book is like 13 volumes. I have an abridged version, which is still hundreds and hundreds of pages. It's like, I don't know, close to 1,000 pages. And it's just talking about the history of magic throughout the world that we have documented. And it's such a well-researched book, but there's so much in it, like literally tracking magic and magical beliefs, magical practices, which heavily interface with religious beliefs, spiritual beliefs throughout different times in history. And then, you're looking at all the stuff going on in history and then trying to figure out how, the magic that I do, the magic that we do, performing magicians, where it came from and, how's this stuff related. So that's what Emanations is about, and that's a part of what it's about. It's not the whole project. I mean, the project is so vast. I do know, though, that I want it to be open. Now, I don't know if I'm going to charge for some of this. It's such an obscure topic, and I think it could be so beneficial and so interesting to so many people that I want to do it for free. And I would like to release it for free. I have a few stuff that I do paid right now. Like I have, different live streams and stuff that I run that people pay for. But for this, it's so different. I really wanted to, I wanted to go somewhere else with it, and just see where I could go with it. So that's sort of what I'm doing right now. I've had a lot of stuff going on, so that's why you haven't heard anything more about the project. It's sort of just been on hold for now while I figure some other stuff out. I'm juggling too many stuff, but it is a project that I am working on and that will be coming to you. And I think it is really important. It's an important project for a lot of reasons. I think magicians deserve to, I think magicians deserve to know what magic is. I think that history is important, and also there's a lot of elements about it that are just so fascinating because it really, I don't know if I would consider myself a student of history. I'm fairly ignorant of a lot of world history. I know some stuff. I try to read. I try to educate myself, but you could ask me about, I don't know. You could ask me about France in the 8th century, and I'd be like, clueless. You could ask me about, Greece in 400 BC, and I would be like, yeah, I don't know what was going on. I mean, so I'm not like, I'm not a genius. I don't know everything, but I know about what I've read and what I've educated myself on. Then I see bits and pieces that fit, and I feel like the more that I read, I have this narrative of the history of humanity, humanity's story, its heartbeat unfolding and beating throughout time. And magic and magical beliefs and magical practices have always played a part in it. And I don't know, it really is fascinating. It's definitely something that I want to share. I think there's a lot to be learned from it. And from many perspectives, I mean, I think this will be a fascinating project even for people who don't know anything about magic, just because it's so... The information is really just so crazy and so unbelievable. It's like the secret history of the world. I mean, and it's not even that it's a secret. I mean, all this stuff is published. It's all documented. It's just the narrative that we have of life on Earth is just so different than the reality. And, just like the mainstream story of humanity is wrong on so many levels. It's just like, it's almost like a joke on so many levels. So many misconceptions. You even do the most basic research on the Ice Age, and you try to pinpoint years and how animals survived and how the Earth, would have thawed out, and how animals would have repopulated the Earth after that, and then evolved to show the genetic differences that they do in certain time spans. Like, you just look at it and you're like, there's a lot more to the stories than we have been told. That's the thing. People don't question stories. They just take the information in, and any inconsistency or discrepancy, they're just they either don't look at it or they just ignore it. And I don't know, there's something about me that can't do that. So when I'm researching all this stuff, it just gives me a narrative of humanity. So that's why I think it's interesting beyond just magic. So yeah, that's what's going on. But yeah, it's a big project. Hopefully we can really start it in the next few months. Right now, I just have a few TV projects that I'm really pushing, really trying to get worked on, and just, a variety of different projects that I'm just trying to move forward. And once I get a few things sorted out, I can put my energy into all these other things as well. It's just I just have to prioritize certain things, and Emanations is not number one on that list. It's pretty high up on my list of priorities, but it's not number one. There's other more important things that I have to take care of first. But that is a project that is coming, and hopefully this has been a little sneak preview of sort of what it's going to be about, what you can expect. As I said, there's never really been anything like this ever done in magic before, and I'm really excited. I think people are going to be blown away by the information, and it's definitely also informed my thinking as a magician, as a performer, because it allows me to approach magic in, with just such a different background, a more diverse background, and you sort of need that. I remember it must have been a year and a half ago, I had met Luke Germain, and we were we were in Denmark somewhere, and we were just chatting. And actually, funnily enough, I had a burger with him. I didn't think I was gonna find any good burgers in Denmark, but I did. The burger that I had was amazing, which is always a good thing. Anyways, we were talking about psychic powers and stuff, and I was talking about like what he does at a show. We're talking about Uri Geller and just a bunch of stuff. But then I told him about my drawing duplication and how I'm trying to do it as a magical feat. Not as like a mind reading thing, like this is magic. And we started talking about like the different mentalism effects, the different psychic effects that can be explored. And he had this book. I forget what it was called. I should email him and ask him. He's a nice guy. I really like Luc Germain. He seems like a good guy. Anyways, he had this book, and it was all about like the different types of divination, and there was like, it was just a book on the different types of divination, and it was all like, how people read. They can read palms, they can read tea leaves, they can read objects, they can read personal objects that are thrown. They can read obviously star signs and birth and numbers. They can read they have this thing that's grown popular where they read your blood type, and it was just all the ways that people have divined stuff historically. And I thought it was quite fascinating. It was just very fascinating. And it just ties into sort of emanations in a weird way, where you have historically all these people interfacing with magic, and I mean, I don't, it's hard to say if some of this magic is real, if it's all fake, what the deal is. But anyways, you have people. We're not going to get into that right now. It's too late. But you have people interfacing with this stuff, and they're doing it in so many different ways. Ways that we never see necessarily in performance magic, which just opens up different avenues to performance. I think it's quite fascinating. I think of a guy like Baron Dupatet and what he was doing. I mean, he was doing what I believe was classic hypnotism, mesmerism, and but just his style of doing it and his actual personal beliefs. He believed he was doing real magic spells, and I mean, from my observations, I believe he was just doing hypnotism, but that he was doing hypnotism without even really being aware that he was doing hypnotism. He just had like such a strong will and such a strong belief in his magical beliefs that he was able to influence people psychologically that way. And so you have all these weird things going on and different presentations for things, and there's just so many ways that magicians can benefit practically by looking at sort of the untold history of magic, which is what Emanations is going to be. But then there's also like an extremely dark side to it, clearly. So I definitely don't want to gloss over that. I want to present everything for what it is. That's why it takes so much research, because I also am responsible for what I say and the information that I put out there. So I want to make sure at the same time that I understand what I'm sharing in terms of the information, and I also want to be sharing it with a very clear goal and mission, I don't want to just release, dangerous information out there. And I believe information can be dangerous. I mean, clearly, magic historically has been used to manipulate people and control people. I mean, there's a reason why these shamans out in the forest. I mean, if we look at a very easy to understand example, you have in the Amazon and different places, tribes untouched by humanity. And you have people doing this in Haiti. I'm horrible at pronouncing stuff. The country, the country where they had, where David Blaine filmed some of his specials. Haiti. I don't know. Haiti. I know how to pronounce it in French. Anyways, the point is, you have all these people with these beliefs, and some of these people really believe in this stuff, and they use it as that's their religion, which I plan to talk about in Emanations as well. But then you have people who are clearly exploiting this, who are, scamming people, telling people that there's a curse on them, and they can remove the curse if they pay them a certain amount of money, and then they'll perform a ritual to remove the curse. So you have you really do have a dark side of humanity interfacing with these things, but then you also have a dark side of them even without the human interfacing. You just have some dark stuff that's not all fake. It's actual real dark stuff. So I have to be very careful about how I present it, and sort of the message that is going out there while educating, while entertaining. So it's a fun project for me. I mean, I really do like this stuff, and I love researching this stuff. Yeah, so that's a project you will be hearing about very shortly. Hopefully, I just need a few weeks to organize some stuff, and hopefully we'll get this podcast running regularly again, once a week, or every few days or so, have a new episode. I just wanted to give you an update on Emanation, because I was really excited to launch it, and I did a preview, and we did the deck of cards and everything, but then it's nobody's heard anything about it since. So I don't want people to think that it was just a marketing thing to sell a deck of cards. That's not what I do. I'm not about that hype. I'm about doing things for real. And it is a real project. It is coming. It will take some time. And but at the same time, it's not going to be a project that's going to come out all at once. It's going to be very episodic, so you will get, you will be seeing stuff throughout time. It's not like you're going to be waiting years for a 100-hour DVD series. No, you're going to get stuff slowly trickle out. So that's all coming. Hope you guys enjoy it when it does come. As is always, thank you for listening, and I will see you guys, or I won't see you. I mean, you'll hear me in the next one. Thank you so much. Oh, and if you guys wanted to get those Emanation playing cards or Hidden Leaves playing cards, they are available on beforemagic.com, so please check that out. Every single deck that I produce is from me. The money goes to me, and the cards are very good quality. So if you do like what we're doing and you want to support it, I do appreciate when people buy the decks. I mean, I hope they do enjoy it, but it's also good for me financially, just because all these projects are really expensive, and I'm really not a billionaire yet at this point in my life, so all the support does legitimately help. So thank you guys for supporting, and I will see you guys in the next one, or whatever. I said you'll hear me. Anyways, have a good night, and Talk soon. Talk soon. Talk soon. Talk soon.